The twin suns of Zalara shone over the royal arena built from shining silver stone. Thousands of alien citizens filled the stands waiting for the great combat trials to begin. The banners of noble houses waved in the air carrying the marks of many species who had gathered to test their warriors. Among the royal guests sat the king of Zalara, a tall and proud ruler whose presence made the guard stand straighter. Beside him sat his daughter, Princess Lyrae, her pale blue skin glowing under the sunlight and her silver eyes watching the crowd with quiet curiosity. Trumpets echoed across the arena. The announcer's voice rang through the crystal amplifiers. He declared that warriors from 20 star systems had come to fight for honor. The strongest would win the blessing of the royal court and the right to represent Zalara in the Grand Council. Games! Every name spoken brought cheers and roars from the crowd as alien champions stepped forward. Some had scaled armor like lizards while others carried glowing blades made of crystal. The princess looked at them with mild interest, but her eyes kept moving toward the empty gate at the far end of the arena, where one final name had not yet been called. When the gate opened at last, a heavy silence fell. A tall figure stepped into the light wearing dark armor without symbols. His face was calm, his eyes steady as if nothing around him mattered. The announcer hesitated before saying his name, Ryan from Earth. A murmur spread through the audience. Few on Zalara had ever seen a human in their lifetime. The stories about them were half myth, half warning. They were said to be creatures of great strength and willpower who once fought wars that shook entire empires. The princess felt a chill as she looked at him. His presence carried no anger, yet something in his calm walk made her heart beat faster. Her father leaned forward, watching with curiosity. The human did not bow or boast. He simply looked toward the royal stand and gave a short, respectful nod. The king nodded back, but the princess lowered her gaze, trying not to meet those sharp human eyes again. The first match began. The human was paired against a warrior from the desert clans of Zorath. The alien was massive, twice Ryan's size, with arms covered in orange scales. The crowd cheered as the Zorath raised his blade high. When the signal was given, he charged like a storm toward Ryan. The human moved aside lightly, his steps measured, his motion almost silent. The alien swung again, but Ryan blocked with a single smooth move and stepped behind his opponent. The match was over before many in the crowd could understand what had happened. The Zorath was on the ground, his weapon lying far away. Ryan had not hurt him, only ended the duel with precision. The arena filled with confused whispers. No one cheered, yet no one laughed either. Ryan stood still, waiting for the next match. The princess looked at him from her seat, her fingers gripping the edge of the railing. She did not understand why she was afraid. The human had done nothing wrong, but his quiet strength felt different from the loud fury of the other warriors. The next challenger came forward from the storm tribes of Kareth. He wore armor that shone with energy lines and carried a spear that sparked with lightning. The crowd shouted his name with pride. The duel began. The alien moved fast, his spear spinning like a wheel of light. Yet again, Ryan did not attack first. He watched his opponent's movements and waited for the perfect moment. When the strike came, Ryan turned his body just enough to let it pass, then caught the spear with both hands and disarmed the Kareth in one clean motion. The weapon clattered to the ground and the human stepped back, giving his opponent time to yield. The silence that followed was deeper than before. The king leaned toward his daughter and whispered that this human was skilled but respectful, a rare mix among warriors. The princess nodded slowly, but her heart was not calm. She could not shake the feeling that she had seen a storm wearing a calm face. After several rounds, Ryan stood undefeated. He had won every duel without cruelty, without pride, and without a single unnecessary strike. His breathing never changed, his eyes never lost focus. Even the veterans of the royal guard were impressed. The announcer declared him the victor of the day. The crowd cheered, but not with the usual wild joy. Their voices carried more awe than excitement. When Ryan was called before the royal throne, he walked across the long bridge of light that connected the arena to the stands. He bowed slightly to the king, who smiled and praised his skill. The king offered him a golden emblem of victory and asked him to speak to the people. Ryan's voice was calm and clear, as he said that he came not for prizes or glory, but to test himself among the warriors of other worlds. He said he wished to learn their ways and share understanding between species that once feared each other. His words were simple, yet every ear in the arena listened. Even those who distrusted humans felt respect for the calm strength in his tone. The princess stood beside her father, hearing his voice for the first time. It was steady like a song of peace, yet carried something deeper like the echo of old battles. She felt her fear shift into a strange pull she could not explain. She leaned closer to her father and whispered that she did not want to stay near this human. The king looked at her with surprise and asked why. She could not answer clearly, only that she felt as if he was more than he appeared. Later that evening, the court gathered for a small feast to honor the champions. Music filled the hall and lights shimmered across crystal walls. Ryan sat quietly at one end of the table, speaking little, eating little, watching the others enjoy themselves. Many nobles came to greet him, curious about Earth and its people. He answered politely, though often his gaze drifted toward the large windows showing the twin moons rising over the horizon. The princess sat beside her father, trying not to look at Ryan, but her eyes betrayed her. She saw the way he watched the stars as if searching for something lost. He seemed alone even in the crowd. The king finally invited him to speak again, asking about the history of his world. Ryan explained that humans had once joined the old alliance of species, but after a great misunderstanding they withdrew, choosing silence over war. He said humans did not forget their friends nor their mistakes. The hall grew quiet as he spoke. His words carried the weight of truth. When the feast ended, the king thanked him again and offered him a place among the royal guard until the Grand Council Games began. Ryan accepted with gratitude. The princess remained silent, but her eyes followed him as he left the hall. In her heart, she felt torn between fear and respect. She remembered stories told to her as a child about human warriors who could turn entire battles alone. She wondered if those stories were real or just tales meant to keep children cautious. As the night grew deep, the princess stood on her balcony looking over the glowing city below. The air was cool, the stars bright. She could see the training grounds far in the distance where Ryan walked alone, his armor shining faintly under moonlight. He moved with the same calm rhythm as before, each motion quiet and balanced. For a long moment she watched him without realizing she had been holding her breath. Something inside her whispered that this human would change their world. She did not know how or when, but she felt it as surely as the pulse in her chest. She turned away, trying to quiet her thoughts, yet sleep would not come easily that night. Morning light spread across the royal city of Zilara. The twin suns rose slowly, turning the towers silver and gold. The day of the second trial had arrived. The air was filled with energy and excitement as citizens gathered once more in the great arena. Every seat was full, every voice echoed with pride and hope. Today the champions would face challenges of skill and wisdom, rather than pure strength. Princess Lyrae stood beside her father on the royal balcony. Her expression was calm, but her heart carried unease. She had dreamed of the human again, seeing him standing in endless light, his eyes unreadable. She tried to brush it off as imagination, but the feeling stayed. Her father, the king, noticed her silence and smiled gently, telling her that fear is often the start of understanding. His words did not calm her fully, but they reminded her to keep her mind open. When Ryan entered the arena, the crowd went quiet again. He walked across the sand wearing simple black armor and carried no weapon this time. His calm face and silent steps drew all eyes toward him. Even the other warriors glanced at him with a mix of respect and doubt. The announcer declared that the second trial would test not only battle skill, but also control of spirit and command under pressure. The first challenge was the maze of illusion. The warriors would be placed inside a large structure built of crystal walls that reflected light into thousands of paths. They had to reach the center without losing focus or attacking shadows that seemed real. Many who entered before had failed, trapped by false images and confusion. Ryan stepped inside the glowing gate. The moment he entered the maze, the mirrors came alive, showing endless versions of himself. Some mirrors showed him angry, others weak, others proud. The maze whispered voices of doubt and fear, trying to confuse him. But Ryan kept walking with calm steps. He focused on the steady sound of his heartbeat and the faint sound of real footsteps instead of illusions. Each time the maze tried to trick him, he paused and breathed slowly, letting the false images fade away. From above, the crowd watched through crystal screens. The king nodded with approval. His advisors whispered that the human had remarkable discipline. The princess watched too, unable to look away. Every move he made looked simple, yet sure, as if his mind could see the truth behind every lie. After some time, Ryan reached the center of the maze and touched the glowing crystal heart that marked success. The entire arena erupted in applause. Next came the challenge of balance. The floor of the arena split open, revealing rising platforms that floated in the air. Warriors had to jump across them while controlling their energy so they would not fall. One by one, the contestants tried. Many slipped after only a few jumps. When Ryan's turn came, he stepped onto the first platform quietly. The floating stones shook slightly under his weight, but he did not rush. He moved from one to another with measured steps and clear eyes. The wind blew stronger higher up. The last few platforms were far apart. Most thought no one could cross them. Ryan looked ahead, studying the distance, then took a calm breath and leapt. His body moved through the air with perfect timing, landing safely on the final stone. The crowd gasped, then cheered louder than before. The king smiled proudly, but the princess's heart beat faster. She felt something deeper than fear now. It was admiration mixed with wonder. After the balance challenge came the final test of the day, a trial of leadership. Each warrior was given a small group of recruits from different alien species. They had to guide them through a simulated battle where teamwork and calm thinking mattered more than strength. Ryan's team was a mix of nervous young aliens from several worlds. They looked at him with uncertainty, unsure how to follow a human. Ryan spoke softly to them. He told them that fear was normal, but it should never control them. He reminded them that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it. His words were simple, yet they carried power. The young recruits listened closely. When the trial began, they moved with more confidence. The simulation created a field full of obstacles and energy storms. Many teams became confused and broke formation. Ryan's team stayed together. He guided them through narrow paths using hand signs and clear orders. He took the lead only when needed, allowing each member to find their own strength. When the final signal sounded, Ryan's group was the only one still standing united. The instructors declared his team the winner. The king clapped with true joy. He said loudly that this human fought with honor and led with wisdom. The crowd repeated his words until the arena echoed with Ryan's name. The princess looked at her father, trying to share his happiness, but her thoughts were mixed. She remembered her own fear from the first day, yet now she felt drawn toward the man who carried such calm power. She wondered if fear and respect could exist together. Later that evening, Ryan was invited to the royal garden for a quiet dinner. The garden glowed with soft light from floating crystals. The king welcomed him warmly and asked him about the ways of humans. Ryan explained that humans valued freedom and learning above all else. He said every person on Earth was taught to adapt to any world, any situation. The king listened with great interest. He said that Zalara had forgotten the meaning of adaptation after centuries of peace. The princess joined them hesitantly. She sat across from Ryan, studying his calm face. He noticed her stare and gave a polite nod. She felt her cheeks warm but returned the gesture. During the meal, the king asked Ryan why humans had stayed silent for so long. Ryan said humans had chosen silence because they had seen what endless wars could do. They had decided to wait until others truly wanted peace. His voice was quiet but carried deep meaning. The king grew thoughtful. When the dinner ended, the king excused himself, leaving his daughter to escort Ryan to the gate. The path through the garden was long, lined with glowing trees and singing insects. For a while they walked in silence. Then the princess spoke softly, asking if humans ever felt fear. Ryan looked at the path ahead and said yes, often, but they tried not to let fear make their choices. He said fear can protect life, but it can also chain the heart. The princess listened closely. She asked if he ever grew tired of being so calm. Ryan smiled gently, saying that calmness was not the absence of emotion, but a way to see things clearly. He added that sometimes calmness itself was a battle. His words stayed with her as they reached the gate. Before parting, she gathered her courage and asked why he fought in the trials if not for reward. Ryan said he wanted to remind the galaxy that humanity still existed not to conquer, but to share strength born from hardship. He said the galaxy had forgotten what humans had learned through struggle, that peace has value only when defended by courage. The princess stood silent for a moment, unable to reply. She watched him walk away under the twin moons, feeling her heart stir with something she could not name. That night in her chamber, she looked out of the window once again. The city lights shimmered like stars. She saw the human walking on the lower paths, his shadow long under the lamps. Her fear was gone, replaced by curiosity and quiet respect. She whispered softly that maybe she had been wrong about him. Far below in the training ground, Ryan looked up at the palace. He could sense the eyes watching him, though he did not know whose they were. He turned his gaze to the stars and whispered a promise that the mistakes of the past would not return. He would make sure that humans and Zilari would never face each other in hatred again. The night grew calm over Zilara, but deep inside the royal palace, unseen figures whispered in secret halls. Not everyone welcomed the presence of a human warrior. Some feared the changes he might bring. The wind carried their whispers through the corridors like a warning of trials yet to come. The next day dawned bright above Zilara. Silver clouds drifted across the sky while the royal banners moved gently in the wind. The city was calm after the trials, yet whispers filled every street. People spoke of the human warrior who fought without anger and won without pride. Some called him a legend reborn, others called him a mystery. The royal guards began receiving questions from the council asking who Rian truly was. Inside the palace, Princess Lirai sat in her study room surrounded by glowing tablets of history. She searched for every mention of Earth. Many records were missing as if someone had tried to erase them. The few fragments that remained spoke of an ancient war between the Zilari Empire and a young species from the blue planet called Earth. The writing said the humans fought, not with numbers but with unbreakable will. Even when their fleets burned, they never surrendered. Then one day the humans vanished from all galactic contact, leaving only a message promising silence unless provoked again. The princess read those words several times. She felt a chill that reminded her of the moment she had first seen Ryan. She wondered if he carried the same spirit that once frightened entire armies. She wanted to know more, but the archives were sealed beyond a certain point. Only her father had access to them. When the king entered the room, she quickly hid her worry behind a polite smile. He looked at her with gentle eyes and asked what she was reading. She replied softly that she was studying the history of peace treaties. The king nodded, yet he could sense her curiosity. He told her that sometimes the past must rest so the present can breathe. Still, she asked quietly if the humans had been enemies or allies. The king sighed and said they had been both. He explained that humans fought fiercely but also saved many worlds during dark times. He said their silence had left a wound that never healed. Later that day, the king met his council in the grand chamber. The elders discussed whether the humans should be trusted. Some feared he might be a spy. Others argued that his presence was a sign of hope. The king listened to every voice, then declared that judgment should wait until truth revealed itself through actions. He reminded them that peace could not grow from suspicion alone. Meanwhile, Ryan trained with the royal guards on the open fields. His movements were calm, precise, and filled with patience. He taught them how to fight as a unit rather than as individuals. The guards respected him for his quiet strength. He never shouted nor showed anger. His guidance was firm but kind. By evening, even the most stubborn warriors began to follow his methods. Princess Lirai watched from the balcony. She saw the alien guards moving in perfect rhythm under his command. She realized that discipline born of hardship was different from obedience born of fear. She felt pride, yet still confusion. Why would such a warrior come to her world in peace when his kind had once left without a word? That night, as the moons rose, Ryan walked alone through the palace gardens. He found himself standing near the memorial fountain built for fallen soldiers of past wars. The water reflected his face in the pale light. He placed his hand over his chest as if honoring someone unseen. The princess appeared behind him quietly. She asked if he missed his home. He replied that home is not always a place but a memory carried by those who still remember. She asked then why he returned after so long. Ryan said he was sent as a messenger to see if the galaxy had changed. He said Earth had watched from afar, waiting for a reason to believe in peace again. His tone was calm yet held sadness. The princess listened in silence, feeling the weight of his words. She asked if he thought Zilara could offer that reason. He said perhaps if they were willing to face truth without pride. The next morning, rumors spread through the palace that someone had tried to access the sealed archives during the night. The guards found traces of data tampering. The king grew worried and ordered a quiet investigation. Unknown to him, one of his advisors named Torvin had been working in secret with outside factions that hated the idea of human return. Torvin believed that the presence of Ryan would destroy their control over trade and military power. He sent messages to his allies beyond the stars telling them to prepare. As the day passed, the city celebrated the upcoming council gathering. Flags waved, music filled the air, and merchants decorated streets with colored lights. Ryan walked among the people, seeing their smiles and simple joys. Children ran beside him asking about Earth. He told them stories of oceans and forests, of rain and snow. Their laughter warmed his heart, reminding him why peace was worth protecting. At sunset, he returned to the palace where the princess awaited him on the terrace. She offered him a small silver charm engraved with the royal crest as a sign of respect. She said it was tradition to honor those who brought balance in conflict. He accepted it with gratitude. Their eyes met for a long moment, neither speaking. The soft wind carried the scent of the crystal flowers around them. Later that night, Ryan sat alone in his chamber writing a report on a small device shaped like a cube. He spoke softly to it, describing his observations. He said that Zalara was a world of beauty, yet filled with quiet divisions. He mentioned that the young princess carried curiosity and courage that could guide her people toward a better path. He ended the report saying that he sensed danger growing within the palace, though he could not yet see its face. Elsewhere in the shadowed hall, Advisor Torvin met with two cloaked figures. They whispered that they would spread fear among the nobles, making them believe the human had come to spy. They planned to use old records of the ancient war, twisting them to paint humans as destroyers. Their plot would begin during the royal feast, where every leader of the nearby systems would be present. The following morning, the palace bustled with preparation. Servants carried trays of glowing fruits and crystal drinks. Musicians tuned their instruments. The king welcomed ambassadors from distant colonies. The princess greeted them with grace, though her eyes often drifted toward the gate, hoping Ryan would appear soon. When he finally entered the hall in ceremonial armor, the crowd grew quiet once more. His presence carried calm authority that needed no words. The king raised a glass to honor unity among species. Cheers filled the hall, but before he could continue, a messenger rushed in, breathless, announcing that one of the border stations had been attacked. The hall fell silent. The king demanded details. The messenger said unknown ships had destroyed the outpost and left a symbol carved into the wreckage. It was an old human insignia. Gasp spread across the room. The nobles turned their eyes toward Rian, some with anger, some with fear. The princess froze in disbelief. Ryan stepped forward, his expression calm yet serious. He said firmly that no human fleet had left Earth for centuries. He asked for permission to examine the evidence himself. The king, after a tense pause, agreed. The feast ended early. The crowd left murmuring in confusion. The princess followed Rian down the corridor, asking if he believed the attack was meant to frame him. He replied that truth always carries shadows before it finds light. He promised to uncover whoever was behind the act before more harm came. When he reached the command chamber, he studied the holographic image of the attack site. The pattern of destruction was familiar yet wrong. It was designed to look like human weapons but lacked their precision. Ryan realized someone wanted war between humans and Zalari once again. The princess entered quietly, standing beside him. She saw the worry in his eyes and asked what he would do. He said he would find the hidden hand behind the attack, even if it meant walking into danger alone. She told him he did not have to stand alone anymore. Her voice was steady and sincere. For the first time, Rian looked at her not as a princess but as an equal standing with courage. Outside, the night deepened. The palace lights reflected on the water canals of the city. In the distance, thunder rolled, though no storm was near. Change was coming, and both of them felt it in their hearts. The royal palace of Zalara glowed under the soft silver light of the twin moons. The corridors were quiet, but tension moved through the air like invisible threads. Guards walked with alert eyes and nervous steps. Everyone had heard the news of the border attack that carried the human symbol. Whispers filled every corner. Some believed Rian was a spy, while others trusted his calm words that denied the claim Princess Lyrae could not sleep that night. She stood near her window, looking toward the training ground where Rian often spent his time. She remembered his promise to uncover the truth. Deep inside, she felt a mix of worry and faith. She wanted to believe him, but fear still touched her heart. The silence outside was broken by a faint flash near the outer wall. Her sharp eyes caught movement in the shadows. Without thinking, she rushed to alert the guards. By the time they reached the courtyard, Rian was already there. He stood facing three dark figures who had slipped through the gates. They carried strange devices and moved like assassins. The guards froze, unsure what to do. Ryan raised his hand, telling them to stay back. His voice was calm as he asked the intruders why they had come. They did not answer. Instead, they threw small orbs that released clouds of smoke and light. Through the haze, the attackers tried to escape, but Rian's senses were sharp. He moved through the mist with careful steps, using sound and motion rather than sight. When the smoke cleared, two of the intruders lay unconscious, their devices destroyed. The third had fled toward the garden, but the guards caught him before he could vanish. When they removed his mask, everyone gasped. It was one of the royal advisors, Torvin's assistant. The king arrived moments later, his expression hard. He ordered the guards to search the entire palace for more intruders. The captured assistant trembled under the bright light of the hall. Ryan stood beside the king, silent and watchful. The king demanded answers. The assistant finally confessed that he had been ordered to plant false evidence linking Ryan to the attack on the border station. The king's face darkened as he realized betrayal had come from within his own council. Torvin was arrested soon after. He tried to deny his role, but records found in his quarters revealed messages to outside factions. The king dismissed him from the council and placed him under guard. The truth spread quickly through the palace, clearing Ryan's name. The princess felt relief flood her heart. For the first time, she looked at the human warrior not as a threat but as a protector. The next morning, the king called for a public gathering in the great square. Thousands filled the open plaza to hear his words. He spoke of unity and courage and of those who sought to break peace through lies. He told his people that truth had been restored thanks to the calm strength of the human warrior who stood beside him. The crowd cheered Ryan's name. Their fear began to turn into respect. Princess Lyrae watched from the royal balcony. Her eyes shone with quiet pride. She remembered how she had once told her father she feared that man. Now she understood that her fear had been of his mystery, not his heart. When Ryan's eyes met hers across the square, she smiled for the first time since his arrival. After the gathering, the king invited Ryan and Lyrae to a private meeting. The king thanked him for saving the palace and protecting the truth. He said the galaxy needed more warriors who fought for peace rather than power. Ryan bowed and replied that he only did what any human would do when faced with deceit. The king placed a golden seal on his armor, marking him as guardian of Zalara. Later that evening, the princess walked with Ryan through the garden paths lined with glowing plants. The air was calm, the night warm. She asked if he would stay on Zalara after his mission. He said he was unsure, as his orders were to observe, not to settle. She looked down, trying to hide her disappointment. He noticed and said gently that duty and heart often travel different roads, but sometimes they meet again. Their peaceful walk was interrupted when a messenger ran into the garden with urgent news. He said the captured advisor had escaped his cell with help from unknown agents. The king ordered an immediate lockdown of the palace. Ryan and the guards searched the lower tunnels while Lyrae stayed with the royal staff for safety. Hours passed without finding him until one guard reported movement near the power chamber. Ryan reached the chamber first. Inside, he found Torvin standing beside the energy core, holding a small device that pulsed with light. Torvin shouted that Zalara had grown weak and that peace with humans would end their rule. He said he would destroy the palace and blame Earth, so that war would return and power would rise again. Ryan stepped closer, his voice calm, telling him that hate never protects anyone, it only eats away what is left. Torvin laughed bitterly and pressed the trigger. Nothing happened. The device sparked but did not explode. Ryan held out a small piece of metal between his fingers. He had already removed the power cell moments earlier when he entered the room. Torvin's eyes widened with shock. Guards rushed in and arrested him again, this time under stronger watch. The king thanked Ryan for his sharp mind and calm action once more. The next day, peace seemed to return to the palace, but the council sent warning messages that more unrest might follow from Torvin's allies beyond Zalara. The king decided to strengthen defense at the borders. He requested Ryan's help to train new officers in strategy. Ryan accepted without hesitation. He believed that the best way to protect peace was to prepare for those who tried to break it. During the training days, the princess often visited the fields, watching him guide the young soldiers. His patience impressed everyone. He corrected mistakes kindly and praised effort more than victory. The recruits learned quickly under his care. Soon the city began to feel safer, stronger, and more united. One evening, as the training ended, Lyrae approached him with a question that had lingered in her mind. She asked how humans became so disciplined. He told her that humanity had faced countless hardships and learned to grow through pain rather than run from it. He said every human carried stories of loss and hope that shaped their strength. She listened with deep interest, realizing that such strength was not born from cruelty, but from endurance. As the sun set, they stood together, watching the light fade behind the crystal towers. The princess said softly that she no longer feared him. Ryan turned toward her with a small smile, saying that fear is a shadow that leaves when light is found. Her heart warmed at his words. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt peaceful. That night the king hosted a small dinner for the royal family and Rian. Music played gently in the background. The king raised a toast to honor trust restored through courage. He said Zalara would remember this lesson for generations. Rian thanked him and promised that Earth would remember Zalara as well. As the dinner ended, the princess walked to the balcony. The city below was bright with lights and joy. She thought of how quickly things had changed. The human who once frightened her had become her world's shield. Her father joined her, smiling proudly. He told her that wisdom often begins where fear ends. She nodded softly, her eyes on the stars where she knew Ryan's home waited somewhere far away. While the palace slept, Ryan stood outside near the fountain again. The night breeze carried faint music from the city. He looked up at the twin moons, thinking about his mission. He knew peace on Zalara was safe for now, but the larger galaxy was still uncertain. He hoped the message of unity here would reach others. He placed his hand over the small silver charm the princess had given him, feeling a quiet strength in its touch. Far away beyond the stars, unseen, ships began to move. The same factions that supported Torvin now prepared to act openly. They had failed to cause war through lies, so now they would strike with force. Their leaders spoke of teaching both humans and Zalari a lesson. None on Zalara knew yet that the calm they enjoyed was only the pause before another storm. Rian felt something stir in his heart, as if distant thunder called his name. He knew his journey was not over. Tomorrow would bring new tests and new truths. For now he stood under the silent sky, ready for whatever would come. The sun rose over Zalara, casting a golden glow across the palace towers. The air carried a strange stillness that felt both peaceful and heavy. The people celebrated the end of the trials, believing that harmony had finally returned. Yet in the UA, quiet corners of the council chamber, the king listened to grim news. Scouts from the outer systems had reported unknown fleets moving toward Zalara's border. The symbols on the ships did not belong to any known ally. Their signals were silent, their intent unclear. The king turned to Ryan, who stood beside the royal table. The human's calm face reflected the flickering lights of the holomap. He studied the moving marks of the enemy fleets and spoke softly that these were not pirates, but organized forces. He said they would strike fast, hoping to create panic. The king asked if he believed Torvin's allies were behind it. Rian nodded slowly, saying that hatred often grows stronger after failure. The king ordered full defense preparations. Princess Lyrae entered the chamber as the orders were given. Her father explained the situation with a steady voice, though she could see the worry in his eyes. She looked toward Ryan and asked if Zalara could survive such an attack. Ryan replied that survival would depend not on numbers, but on courage and unity. He said fear divides while courage gathers strength. His words gave her comfort, though the fear of war still touched her heart. The next days passed in restless motion. The palace became a command center filled with guards and officers. Ryan trained soldiers day and night, teaching them how to work together, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to protect one another. His quiet authority gave the troops confidence. Even the most doubtful officers began to believe they could stand against the coming storm. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the hills, the princess visited the training ground. Rian stood watching his troops finish drills. The orange light reflected on his armor, making him look almost like part of the setting sun. She approached him slowly and asked if he ever grew tired of endless conflict. He said he did, but sometimes peace needs defenders who do not rest. He added that hope without strength is fragile. She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly that she hoped he would live to see the peace he was protecting. Night came, and with it, the first alarms. The sky darkened as strange lights appeared above the outer horizon. The invading fleet had arrived sooner than expected. The city trembled as their ships entered orbit. The royal guards rushed to their positions while civilians were guided to safety. The king stood before his generals, giving commands with calm authority. Rian stood beside him like a silent guardian, ready for battle. The first wave of enemy drones descended on the outer defense walls. Explosions of light filled the sky, but the shields held firm. Rian coordinated the defense teams across the communication network. His voice remained steady, guiding soldiers with precision. Every order he gave turned chaos into rhythm. The alien soldiers who once doubted him now followed his instructions without hesitation. From the command balcony, Princess Lyrae watched the distant battle. Her hands tightened around the railing as she saw the flashes of light in the clouds. She heard Ryan's voice over the speakers encouraging the troops never to let fear rule their hearts. His calm tone reached even the civilians hiding in the shelters. The king noticed her expression and said that trust is stronger than fear. She nodded and whispered that she finally understood why humans were respected and feared at the same time. Hours passed as the battle raged above. Ryan's strategies turned the tide slowly in their favor. He directed the pilots to lure enemy ships toward the magnetic storms near the planet's poles. The trick worked. Several enemy ships lost control and crashed into the storm belts, but then new signals appeared on the map. The enemy had launched a second fleet larger than the first, heading directly for the capital. Ryan studied the readings quickly and made a decision. He told the king that he would lead a small strike team to intercept the enemy flagship before it could reach orbit. The king hesitated, saying that the risk was too high. Ryan replied that if the flagship fell, the rest would scatter. The king finally agreed but told him to return alive. The princess stood nearby, hearing every word. She wanted to protest but stopped herself. Instead, she walked to him and handed him the small silver charm she had given earlier. She said quietly, "That light always finds its way home." He bowed slightly and promised to return. Within minutes, Ryan and his team launched aboard a small defense cruiser. The engines roared as they broke through the clouds toward the black sky. The enemy fleet grew larger ahead, their ships glowing faintly in the void. Ryan guided his crew with calm focus. They approached under cover of interference from the magnetic storm. When they reached close range, Ryan gave the signal to fire. The cruiser's cannons released beams of pure energy, cutting through the nearest enemy ships. The enemy flagship turned its weapons toward them, but Ryan's quick maneuvering saved them from the first strike. Inside the palace, the princess watched the live feed from the control room. Her heart raced as she saw Ryan's ship dancing among the stars, surrounded by enemy fire. The king placed a hand on her shoulder, telling her to trust his courage. She prayed silently that he would return. The battle above grew fierce. Ryan ordered his crew to divert power to the engines and shield systems. They flew close to the flagship, dodging beams and missiles. With perfect timing, Ryan launched 2 magnetic charges at the ship's reactor core. The explosion that followed lit the sky like a second sunrise. The enemy fleet broke formation in panic. One by one, their ships jumped away into space, retreating from Zalara. The city below erupted in cheers. The people ran through the streets, crying out the name of the human warrior who had saved them. In the control room, the princess covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. The king smiled with deep pride. But moments later, the signal from Ryan's cruiser went silent. The explosion had disabled communication. The joy in the room turned into worry once again. Hours passed with no word. The search team scanned the sky for signs of the missing cruiser. Finally, as dawn returned, they picked up a faint beacon near the Southern Ocean. A small escape pod floated among the waves. Rescue ships rushed to the site. When they opened the pod, they found Ryan inside, alive but exhausted. The crowd waiting on the shore cheered as he stepped out and saluted the flag of Zalara. The king himself came to meet him. He thanked him for saving their world and said that Zalara would never forget what a human's courage had done. Ryan bowed and said that peace was the victory, not him. The princess approached slowly, holding the silver charm she had given him. He smiled and told her that her words had guided him through the darkness. That evening, a great celebration filled the capital. Lanterns floated into the sky, carrying wishes of peace. The king addressed his people, saying that unity had saved them where fear once ruled. He declared that Zalara and Earth would stand as allies from that day forward. The crowd shouted in joy as fireworks lit the night. Later, Ryan stood on the balcony beside the princess, watching the lights fade. The city below glowed like a field of stars. She asked if he would return to Earth now that his mission was complete. He said yes for a time, but promised to come back when peace was certain. She looked at him with calm eyes and said that Zalara would always welcome him home. As the stars rose higher, Rian placed the silver charm on his wrist and turned his gaze to the horizon. He said quietly that the galaxy had seen what unity could do and that fear would no longer rule their hearts. The princess smiled, knowing that her once fearful words had turned into a legend that would be remembered for generations. When his ship lifted into the sky, the people of Zilara gathered to watch. The king raised his hand in salute. The princess whispered softly that the human warrior had taught them all that true strength lies not in power, but in understanding. The ship climbed higher until it disappeared among the stars, leaving behind a world forever changed by the courage of one human.